Now, in January, Greece took over the presidency of the EU Council for 6 months. And among its priorities is that of illegal immigration, an issue that made headlines with the tragic events that took place off the Italian island of Lampedusa last October. Situated as it is on Europe's southern border, Greece itself has become a crash point for thousands of migrants who flee unrest and risk their lives on costly and dangerous trips across the Mediterranean. And as Greece continues to struggle with its own economic depression, their arrival represents an extra financial burden. On the island of Mytilene, the number of illegal immigrants has tripled in just a year. Our correspondent Natalie Savarikas sends us this report.
Father Stratis is no ordinary priest. Besides his icons of worship, he also keeps a little treasure in his church. Cartons and bags full of food, clothes and medicine are found in each and every corner.
As you can see, for example, here we have clothes for children, and we give them to those who are most in need.
And the most vulnerable here on the island of Mytilene are migrants. Dozens arrive every week, including women and children. They are held in this newly built center while their backgrounds are checked by authorities. Many are asylum seekers from Afghanistan to Syria, fleeing wars and extreme poverty, hoping to reach Europe.
The situation changed after the authorities built a wall in the north of the country. Now, we see more and more migrants coming through the Aegean Islands.
With one of the longest coastlines in Europe, dead-crippled Greece is a main point of entry into the continent. We met up with a family from Afghanistan who risked their lives traveling across Iran to Turkey before they embarked on a small vessel for Mytilene. The mother of 4 agreed to talk to us on condition of anonymity.
We really don't understand how we survived. It was very dangerous. I don't really remember how we fell into the sea or how we're still alive. But I had to get away from my country.
The boat journey from Turkey is perilous as smugglers overload the rafts with as many travelers can afford to pay the hefty fee. So the Coast Guard here is always on patrol, using radars and infrared cameras to detect immigrants, though often they find corpses.
Firstly, the boats are overloaded. Secondly, passengers don't know what they're doing. And the boats can't handle the rough seas. With the weight, they sink. And we end up picking up dead bodies. This is very difficult for all of us here. We've been working on these boats for years. And we have children. It's very hard.
Authorities say migrants sometimes throw themselves into the sea to force a rescue operation. But human rights organizations say the Coast Guard is also responsible for the rise of deadly boat incidents. They accuse them of systematically pushing back migrants from Greek waters. The United Nations Refugee Agency has demanded an inquiry following the recent drowning of 9 children. With the Turkish coast only a few miles away, Father Stratis now and again rescues stranded migrants as they land on this very beach. Indeed, with their arrivals tripling this past year, the priest knows only too well it will take much more than praying to stop Greece's immigration tragedies.
Well, for more on this, we're joined now by our guest, Marco Martiniello, who's director of the Centre for Ethnic and Migration Studies. Hello, thank you for being with us on France 24. In the last 20 years, at least 20,000 people have died attempting to reach Europe. The Mediterranean has become an underwater graveyard. What's being done about this?
Well, I think that the response that we are trying to give at the European level is not the right one because, since December 2013, we have decided to put irregular migration in the EU Common Security and Defense Policy. So in a way, we are criminalizing the victims. So what is really needed is a comprehensive migration policy that deals with irregular migration, legal migration, asylum seekers, and we still can't find that common comprehensive immigration policy.
And Italy has accused Brussels of leaving it to deal with the problem, of not offering enough support, because this is an issue that needs to be addressed on a European level, not country by country.
Of course, I would say at least at the European level, because we are dealing with a global issue. It is true that southern European countries are left, on their own to deal with the issue. You were mentioning Mytilene, an island I know very well because I go there every year. The situation is dramatic, but it's also Lampedusa. It's everywhere in Europe. And it's not, decisions taken like the UK decided to give £2 million to Greece to help them to repatriate the migrants that are going to solve the problem. We really need to show more solidarity, at least in the European Union.
And as you mentioned there, the issue is of criminalising the victims. What of the traffickers who organise these trips? Are they being hunted down and prosecuted? Can they be?
Well, they could be, but I'm not sure that we are doing enough. Obviously, it's easier to criminalize the people we find than to deal with, organized crime, which doesn't know borders and frontiers and are very well organized.
And how much of an impact is this having on Greece as it's struggling to get out of this crisis?
Well, it has an impact. I mean, as you know, racism is increasing in Greece, not because Greece is a racist society, not more than any European society, but because the difficulties are really huge. And all the population in Greece is really suffering a lot. And so it's easy in those conditions to use the good old scapegoat strategy and to blame the victim for the problems we see. By the way, Greece is not doing nothing. You know that 43,000 irregular migrants were arrested in Greece last year. It was about 80,000 in 2012. Of course, the less resources the state has, the less efficient it can be.
And you were talking about that rise in xenophobia. Is that something we're seeing elsewhere too?
Well, in my view, we see that throughout Europe. There's no country in which you don't see a kind of, return of not only xenophobia, but I would even say racist ideologies and theories. I could mention France, I could mention Belgium, I could mention Italy, I could mention almost member states of the EU. And this is a major concern, I think, for the future of democracy on our continent.
And how do we address this issue also? Because we're talking about countries on the periphery of Europe who are going through huge crises. How do you address that? Isn't it going to have to wait until those revolutions, the rest of the Arab Spring is over?
Well, we can't wait. I think that we have to be modest, but we have to act. And I think that the signal that was given after the Lampedusa tragedy in October 2013 was not the right one. What did our leaders say? They said, well, we are deeply sorry, we are very sad, but we are not going to do anything substantial until after the European elections. And I think we are just waiting, we are temporizing, and it's wrong because we are dealing with very urgent matters and issues. We are talking about lives being lost of children, women and men. So we really need to act.
And after Greece, the presidency of the EU Council, Italy will be taking over. Is it likely they'll have a different approach?
Well, I'm sure that both governments will try to push that issue on the agenda. But, the power of the presidency is not unlimited. And, in Europe, we have to agree between 28, 29 member states. And, it's going to take a while. I'm not sure that we are ready for this. And it reveals the bad shape of Europe as a solidarity project.
Marco Martinelli.
Feels that.
Thank you very much for having talked to us on France 24. Thank you for your analysis. That's where we're leaving it for this focus segment on illegal immigration in Greece. It's also where we're leaving it for this half hour. But stay tuned. Coming up after a short break, our culture editor, Clovis Kazai, will bring us the latest in film with the first Black Annie, as well as dance here in Paris and music. Stay tuned for that. It's all coming up.
The 51%.
A programme about the women making headlines in international news. Influential women, human rights activists or victims of discrimination. From Paris to New Delhi, from Washington to Tunis, Every week, the 51% highlights the women who are fighting to change a world largely dominated by men.
The 51% on France 24 and on France24.com.